Once again, today's video is going to be something a little bit different, and I'll tell you right now, this is not going to appeal to everyone. I know a lot of folks like to see activity, like to see things being done, engines tore apart, whatever. This isn't going to have a lot of activity in it. It's going to be a relatively short video, I think, before it's all over, but it's going to be more of a discussion rather than showing me doing something, though there might be a little bit of that in here before it's over. But what we're going to talk about today is this Tobihan sprayer. Now, I did shoot some video on this sprayer about 18 months ago now. That would have been the spring of 2024 when I first bought this unit. I shot quite a bit of video, and my intention originally was to post it on the channel, but I decided not to. I figured the interest would be minimal, so I didn't bother with it. I'm not sure the interest is going to be much better here either, for that matter, but nonetheless. So I've saved the video, the original video, but I didn't use it, so you've never seen it before. I am going to cut in some of that original video here in a minute to show you when I first bought this unit and what I started with, and then we'll come back on the other side of that and I'll show you what I'm going to really talk about here today. And that is after using this unit for 2 seasons now. So I use it in the summer of 24 and then the summer of 25. This is autumn of 2025, and I'm done with it for the season now. And what I've discovered, or what I learned, is these wheels right here, those are hard plastic. They're not air-filled. They're just simply an inexpensive hard plastic wheel. They have no mass or weight to them, and I don't like them. They don't add enough mass to really smooth out the rolling of the unit, even when it's got water in it and it's relatively heavy. And they're just inexpensive. They're cheap. So what I'm going to do is replace these plastic wheels with these solid rubber wheels. That's what you see right here. I bought these at Harbor Freight, similar to, I think, a Princess Auto in Canada, and they probably have something similar in Europe and the UK. It's a 5/8 diameter axle, and the diameter of these replacement wheels is the same diameter as the originals that came with the unit. These are, the replacement wheels are a little bit narrower here than the originals, but only by, half an inch, 12 millimeter, something like that, 12, 13 millimeters. So it's not enough really to make any difference. But they're much heavier in weight. These are solid rubber wheels. These are not foam-filled. We need to differentiate. Foam-filled would be much lighter weight than this, and they're quite a bit more expensive, probably by a factor of 3 times per wheel. In other words, each wheel probably costs 3 times as much if it was foam-filled. These are solid rubber. They're very solid, and of course they don't go flat. So I really wanted the mass, and I wanted the rubber texture to help smooth out and quiet the running of the towing of this unit. So, and these weren't expensive. I think I paid $7.50 US each, $7, something like that, at Harbor Freight. And these should be a direct replacement, I'm thinking, for those wheels. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to replace those wheels with these. But before we do that, we're going to cut over to some of the original video I shot, again, close to 18 months ago, just to give you a sense of where I started with this project. And it's not real long. I think it's like 5 minutes. And then we'll come back here and talk about or get into the replacing of these wheels with the new rubber wheels. So let's go over that older video and I'll set it up for you. What you see in the shot right now is a new Tobihan sprayer, lawn and garden sprayer. And the reason I bought this is I have 2 quite long gravel driveways, and I live rural, in a rural area, and I end up with a lot of weeds during the course of the warm weather growing up periodically in the gravel, and it drives me crazy. I'm not going to open this on camera. I will open it, and then I will bring the camera back and show you what it looks like as it's packed. And then I'll assemble it. There is quite a bit of assembly required, as I understand it. It might take me an hour or so, we'll see. And then once it's done, I'll bring you back. Owner's manual, harness, looks like the nozzles and clips and means of fastening all these hoses. You can see all these these hoses. Quick, many of them are pre-cut to length. Hardware, nuts, bolts, screws, fasteners. This looks like kind of a connector. Goes with a harness, brackets, more hoses, and the hand spray nozzle I mentioned. So that's the components that I've got to fish out. And there's some brackets over here, brackets over here on both sides, metal brackets. Go through the manual here in a moment and understand what I got to do, and then I'm going to go ahead and put it together, and then we'll talk about it after it's assembled. It took me an hour and a half-ish, maybe a little more, to put this together. I took my time. You could probably do it an hour, hour and 15 minutes if you pushed it. I was not in a rush. I had no reason to hurry, so I just took my time. Everything fit together as expected. All the hardware was there, the instructions were clear. If you're reasonably mechanically inclined, you would have no problem putting this together, I don't think. As long as you follow the instructions to the letter, you'll be fine. So for those of us that are instructions challenged, might be a little bit of issue with you because there's a lot of hardware. You see the green liquid in the tank there? That's just water with food coloring, and in fact, you can see the food coloring on my fingers. I used that just to test the spray pattern. I did have to adjust the height of the spray nozzles just a little bit. They're pretty close, and they do give you instructions on how to do that. It's very simple. Green food coloring, I did a test of the spray pattern just now, towed by the tractor. It's just a compact tractor, as you can see there. And the spray pattern for my tractor, I've got to keep my outside wheel, if I go along the edge of the driveway, about 2 feet in from the edge of where I want the spray to be. That's approximately where it seemed to work out. It's got a very wide spray pattern. The instructions say 70 inches plus overspray. I'm not sure why they described it this way, but 70 inches effective plus 2 feet on each side for overspray. Bottom line is this lays down a more than 70-inch wide spray pattern. And again, if I keep my outside wheel about 2 feet, front wheel about 2 feet in from the edge of where I want to spray, seems to be about right. I'm not going to spray with chemical today again because the weather's supposed to get nasty here in a few hours, so I'm going to drain that green water out of there and let it sit overnight, and then tomorrow, the weather's supposed to be much better. I'll probably come out in the morning and do my first test spray. The wiring harness that came with the unit is too short for my tractor. I think it's really designed more for a yard or garden type tractor. So what I had to do is take the harness off my other spray tank. That's the one that doesn't have the undercarriage, but the harness is virtually the same, and patch them together. The ends are the same, the connectors are the same. I just plugged it in and essentially doubled the length. And that way I could reach the battery in the front of my compact tractor. I think this is really designed for, again, a garden tractor. It has a battery under the seat, so it doesn't have to go near as far. So I did make it work, and in fact, the other harness is actually more advantageous for me because it has clamps that I can clamp right onto the battery rather than having to use spade terminals and hook it up permanently or semi-permanently like this one came with. I'll have to do something longer term to clean up the wiring a little bit and make it a little more, what's the word I'm looking for, pristine. But it works right now for my initial purpose, and then over the coming weeks and months as I get around to it, I'll clean up the wiring and figure out how to route it so it's not nearly as exposed. It does have a switch. I don't know if you can see that there, a switch that you put in your lap. The switch is right, where am I here? Right up in here, and you just activate the switch and the pump comes on, starts pumping. I did not try the wand right there. I will eventually, but that's not a major deal for me right now. I have other means or other ways of spraying, spot spraying if I have to, such as my 4-gallon backpack, but eventually I'll probably get around to it. So that's the project. That's what it looks like all finished, and like I said, I'll drain the green water flush it out, and then tomorrow or whenever the next day is, I get a decent day and a little time, I will go ahead and see if I can't do a spray pattern, see what happens. So, to replace this original hard plastic wheel with this aftermarket solid rubber tire, one thing I have to accommodate is the rim width, and that is this distance right here from this point on the right to this point on the left. The overall width of this rim or hub is quite a bit wider than this new tire right here. And in fact, here's the dimensions. I thought I would share those with you. The original hub, hard plastic hub, is approximately 2 13/16 inches wide, or about 72.5 millimeters. The new hub, that would be the new rubber wheel or tire, is about 1 11/16 inches wide, or approximately 42.9 millimeter. If you subtract the two, the difference is 1 1/8 of an inch, or about 28.6 millimeters. So I've got to come up with a way of making up that difference right there. The axle, by the way, the axle shaft itself is approximately 5/8 of an inch, or 16 millimeter. This is the original hardware that holds this assembly together. This bushing right here, this is a factory bushing, goes on the inside of the original hub up against the flange, the metal flange that the axle goes through. Then there was a washer, then the wheel, so it would go something like that. And then on the outside of the wheel would be the second washer, and then this E-clip. There's a groove cut in the end of the axle that this E-clip fits into. So I have to make up that 1 1/8 inch gap. So after giving it a lot of thought, different approaches to coming up with essentially a bushing that's 1 1/8 inches long by approximately the same ID or inner diameter as the axle, so it could slip on, similar to this original bushing here. I'm still going to use this bushing, by the way, and this is in addition to. I could make one on my lathe out of a piece of metal. I got all kinds of metal that I could machine that seemed like overkill for this application. So I went through my PVC and plastic fittings, and I got a lot of that around as well, and I found this piece of a plastic pipe. I think this is left over from a underground sprinkling system I had many years ago at another house, I think. Anyway, remember this inner diameter here, right here, has to be approximately 16 millimeters, 5/8 or so. And this piece is almost perfect. And let me measure it for you. Let me zero this out. I'm going to leave it in millimeters right now, only because it's going to be easier, I think, than dealing with fractions here. Remember, 16 millimeter-ish is what we're looking for. And you can see that's 16 plus, just over. About 16 there, a little less, depending. It's not perfectly round, of course, but I did slip this over the axle shaft, and it's a nice fit. It's just a wee bit snug, but not overly so. I could easily get it on. And I'm thinking this will be fine for my application, especially as a proof of concept. It might be temporary. Eventually I might end up making a better quality bushing, unless it works. If it works fine, then I'll leave it alone. And there will be no real pressure against this piece. It will be lateral this way with a washer here anyway. So I think this is going to work out perfect for what I need. So now I need to cut two pieces, approximately 1 1/8 inches long, or 28.6, 28 plus millimeters. I hope you can see that mark right there I put on the plastic pipe. That is 1 1/8 inches in from the end. So now I'll scribe this, and then I'll take it over to my bench vise and cut it off. When I say scribe, I'm going to use this tubing cutter right here. It's usually or often used to cut off copper pipe and PVC piping. You run this all the way around the pipe, and it'll eventually will cut it off. They don't work. These tools don't work quite so well on this kind of plastic. It's a little bit too soft, but it will allow me to scribe. I don't know if you can see the mark is right in there. Probably doesn't quite show up on camera. And I'm going to scribe it just a wee bit long, so that gives me a room to kind of clean up the end. Again, this isn't parts for the space shuttle, so I don't have to really worry too much about being too precise. So you can see the, I think, scribe mark being created there as I run this around. So I'll run this around a few times, and then I'm not going to cut it off this way. I'm just marking it, and then I'm going to take it over and finish it with the hacksaw in a bench vise, only because as I go further and further into this kind of plastic and you tighten this knob, it'll tend to want to collapse this pipe, and then it kind of messes up the cut. In fact, that's enough pretty much right there. So there's the circular cut I made with that cut-off tool, and I don't know if you can see right there is the original mark. Might come through okay, I don't know. But now we're going to take it over to the bench vise. I'll clamp it, use this cut mark as a guide for my hacksaw, and I'll cut it off. And then I'll clean up the ends with a piece of sandpaper and maybe a sharp knife. This one has already cleaned this up, so that looks okay. So we're going to go over to the bench vise now. Again, using that circular cut as a guide for my hacksaw, I'm just going to go ahead now and cut right through it. Like that. Remember, 1 1/8 is our target. It might be just a fuzz long, I'm not sure, but let's see how we did. And you can see right there, and right on the button, 1 1/8. Now I'll just clean up this edge a little bit with some sandpaper, a sharp knife, and make another one. I'm not going to show that because that'll be a duplicate effort of what you just saw. So let's see where we ended up. Remember, our target is 1 1/8. Get that in focus, and pretty much there. Just a few minutes later, and I made the second one. You can see now I've got 2 of them. And now we'll move over to the sprayer, and we'll see how everything fits together. I think it's going to work out just fine. I have the entire assembly elevated up off the ground on blocks so that I can have free access to each side, to make it easy to mount those new wheel assemblies along with those little black plastic bushings or sleeves. Another thing that I've been thinking about doing, I haven't done it yet, but I'm toying the idea of making a little bit of a drop hitch for the back of the tractor. I don't know if you noticed in the previous clip where this was connected to the tractor, it wants to sit a bit like this because the hitch on the tractor is higher than the level plane of the sprayer. So I might fabricate a little bit of a drop hitch if I get around to it to try to level this unit out when it's in use. Not a big deal, just something I've been thinking about doing one of these days. Well, let's go ahead and mount these new wheel assemblies with those little bushings and see if my dimensions that I calculated worked out. I have all my pieces laid out here. I'm going to put a little white lithium grease on the axle here, a little lubricant. You could use regular axle grease. But this is a pretty moderate application, and I'm a real proponent of using lithium grease whenever possible. And even though this is technically an axle, I think regular bearing grease might be a little bit of an overkill. I'll go get a little piece of paper towel, wipe my hands off, get that lithium grease off. This wheel is directional, and that is from the perspective that the labeling is right here, where the convex side of the hub is. The other side of the wheel is flat, and there is no labeling or nomenclature. So I'm going to mount it like this so that I can see the label of the nomenclature here. First thing we're going to put on is a new little bushing I made. Then the factory bushing or sleeve spacer. a washer, then the wheel itself, another washer, and then the E-clip right here. So that one went together fine, but the real tale will be told on the other side when I mount the second wheel on, so let's move around to the opposite side. Once again, we're going to do the same thing. My bushing, factory bushing, washer, I don't want to forget the grease. And the wheel assembly. Now we're going to see if everything fits like I'm expecting it to. There's a washer and the E-clip. And it worked out just perfect. Well, I consider the project a success. The wheels fit fine. The dimensions I worked out seem to be about where they needed to be. Everything fit together as I would have expected. So it's ready to go for next season. Again, just a reminder, these are solid rubber tires. They have a lot more weight and a lot more mass than those original inexpensive plastic tires that came with the unit from the factory. I'll no longer be using this anymore this season. I'm done with it. We're well into the autumn or fall season of 2025. And I used the unit for the last time here a couple of weeks ago for the season. I do run fresh water through it and then pump it through the whole system, make sure I don't leave any residual chemicals in there. And then I drain it completely of water. Even though this will be stored in the heated shop here over the winter, I do drain it anyway. But it's really all ready to go for winter storage. That's going to be it for the video today, folks. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.